Hey guys, if you're looking for help with your Amazon business in terms of troubleshooting or strategy, visit sellersessions.com/consultancy or drop me a message to danny@sellersessions.com. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Today I bring in Darren from Vendo. Hey Darren, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing, Danny?
Yeah, good. I know you've been on the show a couple of times before, but would you like to give a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm the Chief Amazon Officer over at Vendo. We help protect your brand and sell more. That's pretty much what we do for over 60 clients now on 3 different Amazon marketplaces.
Sounds good. All right, so today what we're going to look at is as seen on TV. So do you want to give a little bit of background on that? I mean, obviously people have seen QVC and stuff and direct response TV, but do you want to give us a little bit of background on it, and we can then start a look on how it can benefit Amazon sellers as well?
Sure. As seen on TV, basically, as it's commonly known, is direct response TV, and that's typically advertising that asks consumers to respond directly to the company. Usually you can call a telephone number. Today's world, you'd be sending a text message or visiting a site. It's basically a way for a brand to directly market to the consumers. In the old days, there was mail catalogs is a good form of what direct response used to be. It typically today it's doing billions in annual revenue. And there's 2 versions of the as seen on TV commercial or direct response spot. There's a long form and a short form. Typically, the long form is around 28 minutes and 30 seconds, and the short forms are generally 2 minutes or less.
Sounds good. And do you want to just go into a bit of detail? What goes into the short form is pretty obvious, yeah? Because that's like a standard size ad. But the long form at 28 minutes, do you want to go into what really that covers? Because that's a long old advert, isn't it?
It is. The long form typically features some sort of expert in the field. So as an example, if it's a direct response company pushing supplements, they're going to have a doctor or some professional in the field pushing the benefits that you would receive from that product, and then showing different studies and tests and clinical trials. They'll have testimonials, usually from a celebrity of some kind who's endorsing the product and stating how efficacious it was for them to take that product. And then obviously you've got an audience in the background that's basically oohing and awing and cheering them on, giving more validation to the miracle pill or drug that's being pushed in some of those supplement type ads.
Okay. Can I ask you, with the stuff you've seen, is some of it, like, obviously there's real stuff, but is some of it absolute horseshit as well, from your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of snake oil salesmanship to it, but there's also, in all fairness, there are some products that we've actually represented as well that have done very well. We've got great customer feedback. That's the beauty of Amazon. You can get honest reviews, obviously, and especially in today's world, with terms of service being what they are.
Exactly.
But we've seen a lot of things ranging from, hey, this really helped my back, to, I really needed this. I've been waiting for something like this. It didn't hurt. It helped. And those are the more medical type products. Obviously, we deal with a lot of products that have nothing to do with supplements of the medical industry, where maybe they're houseware type products like a garden hose or a kitchen appliance, something like that.
Yeah, makes sense. And in terms of production, it's obviously with an audience and stuff, what kind of work goes in there? I mean, not everyone's got access to that. Do you literally, when you're paying for your ad, are you paying for a director, programmer, a casting for the audience, all those kinds of things?
It varies. I mean, there are large players in the space. Some of your audience may be familiar with the Guthy-Renkers of the world. They produce commercials like Proactive and Meaningful Beauty with Cindy Crawford. Tony Robbins, Personal Power, they did. And to do that, some of these require hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce. Studios, directors, to your point, and all the other production necessities. Others you can do with a relatively low budget in today's world, especially if you have access to your local cable access channel or network, and you want to just say, hey, how much is the cost for a 30-second spot or a 2-minute spot? Throw together a 2-minute commercial. A lot of these that you might have seen, they're not heavily produced. I mean, you'll see some that look really cheap looking, but they're very effective.
Yeah, some have got like green screen backgrounds and stuff that you can just take back and edit and drop in your own files and stuff. So do you want to talk a bit more about the different companies in the space? Who are the key players?
Sure. Guthrie Renker I mentioned as one of them. They're
That's the
one of the
first one. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're one of the more well-known ones. Canela Response is another one. They did Car MD, Hip Hop Abs, Jillian Michaels. ICOF is another one. They did
Yeah.
they do stuff for Lumber Liquidators, Tommy Copper, Quicken Loans.
Yeah.
There are tons of them. We work with several.
Yeah.
I'll keep their names out of this podcast for protection of confidentiality,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
I will say some of those companies we work with have produced some very big items that you might be familiar with, some of which are the Snuggie tails, the blankets, those types of things.
Yeah, makes total sense. So in terms of monitoring, obviously TV it's not like we've got with our digital advertising, nearly every metric is counted for in most cases, and not so much on Amazon, but obviously when you look at like AdWords and Facebook, you've got a plethora of metrics that you're working to. How do you harness and manage the TV data metrics?
Well, there's one platform that's readily available to most of these companies called Dr. Metrics. It's one we use here at Vendo a lot. It tracks a number of different metrics, from the number of airings, the channel it aired on, the time it aired on, the different lengths of commercials. It actually has links to the commercial themselves. There's a lot of different other metrics that the advertising world uses that I won't bore your audience with, but is used typically to help these companies monitor the performance of their ad spend. But Dr. Metrics is one of the main platforms that a lot of companies use to monitor these things.
Cool. Sounds good. And obviously you mentioned you've got some guys, like some clients of your own that are go through this process on a regular basis. Do you want to share some of your experiences from this?
Yeah. Amazon and As Seen on TV, typically, the bottom line is TV still works in a big way. I know a lot of people are talking about how TV, radio dead, and retail dying, and I can claim it's just the opposite. Our parent company, we help a lot of companies at Walmart, for instance, and so I can tell you retail, there's some of these As Seen on TV companies with one item or one SKU are doing hundreds of millions of dollars just in December alone. These are As Seen on TV type products. And what they've done is they've now translated this success onto Amazon, where these campaigns will generate anywhere from $2 to $5 million within a 4 to 6 week period, especially if it's done the right way. And so we're seeing that pick up on Amazon.
Yeah, makes total sense. And what about if someone, like Amazon sellers, a lot of the guys that listen to the show are private label sellers. They're not quite your Nikes. They're in between. They've established brands. They're 7-figure sellers. Where can they benefit from TV and be able to harness it themselves with a respectable budget to use?
Well, a lot of smaller sellers now are leaning into Facebook ads and things like that with video. Video content converts really well on some of those paid platforms, and it's very accessible for a lot of companies, even with just as little as their iPhone, to shoot viral videos and do kind of a guerrilla style of what As Seen on TV is officially, when you look at what they do when they spend on the big networks. So a lot of the smaller guys, I would encourage, shoot video. You can edit it relatively cheap with free software tools now, even on your computer. Leverage the power of some of the direct marketing tools, such as Facebook, paid search on Google. But I would also encourage them, as I mentioned earlier, contact your local cable networks where there's obscure channels and test a 2-minute spot of that video on those channels. It can be relatively cheap. I know in the States, you can do a spot from anywhere from $5 to $10 grand. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but the return that you could potentially get on it is exponential.
Yeah.
Well, one other aspect of it, Danny, I will mention is our experience has been a lot of these companies shied away from Amazon in the early days because they felt like it was cannibalizing their DR sites.
Right.
And very quickly over the last couple of years, they've adapted heavily to where Amazon, in some cases, is actually a larger channel for them. So they've really leaned into Amazon.
Well, that makes sense, because when we had a conversation about Vendor Central a little while ago, what we were saying is the people that were getting the most benefit out of Vendor Central, because we're both in agreement that Amazon doesn't do a heavy amount of lifting. They want all your products, but they're not going to run AMS ads, etc., for you, or do a huge amount of work. It's much more relied upon. As Seen on TV, sold by Amazon, is a great marriage because they've got the trust of the brand of Amazon and external market driving the traffic to the site. Then Amazon doesn't have to do the marketing. So therefore, there is a benefit there in terms of working with Vendor Central and doing it as seen on TV, because when you marry the two together as a brand, you make good money. Whereas someone who doesn't have that kind of backing going into Vendor Central doesn't always have that level of benefits.
You hit the nail on the head. A lot of these companies we work with, originally, they were all Vendor Central based. To your point, they were just driving tremendous amounts of traffic via TV and other sources to their Vendor Central accounts, essentially. However, the shift has started to occur, as it has with most sellers, where that's why they came to companies like us, because they were tired of the lack of control that they were getting by doing it, because then it truly was cannibalizing the DR site because they couldn't hold pricing in place, as an example. So yes, you're totally right. That's what Vendor Central.
Percentage, like you said, we're going off track slightly, but you're right. That percentage has gone up. I won't name again who they are. I won't even give them the number, but let's just say they're a top 5 brand on Amazon that is in Vendor Central. And what I said to them is that they're talking about Amazon wanting to jack up their fees and stuff. And I said to them, and what are you getting in return? You need to draw a hard line, because you're in their top 5 or so sellers on Vendor Central in the UK, and they're not giving you anything in return. So why should they be able to have the opportunity and negotiate for you to give you nothing? Basically, they're saying to you, please give me some more free money. That's what they're doing. They're not putting anything back in the bank.
Yeah, 100%. Again, that's why the shift occurred, because they weren't seeing the ROI of the value from that relationship, so they had to evolve to a different model.
Yeah, makes total sense. Counterfeits, any problems with those?
Yeah, a big problem for the as seen on TV world, especially on Amazon. A lot of knockoffs, especially with private label today. It was even to the point where the factories themselves that these companies were using were selling the product on Alibaba using the exact same assets and content that the as seen on TV companies produced, marketing it out there to potential rogue sellers to jump and hijack listings and sell these products ahead of the release. So in response to that, 3 or 4 of these major companies actually filed a suit against Amazon, and there was some form of a settlement. It kind of dissipated a little bit, I think, hence the entrance of brand registry and other tools. Yeah. But it's been a big problem for a lot of as seen on TV sellers on Amazon.
Cool. And have they managed to use something like the transparency program in any way for leverage?
Yeah, we have one client who actually started using transparency on this last couple of items, and amazing the effect that he had. Clean listings after that, maybe 1 or 2 sellers, but got him off very quickly and managed to combat the problem by enrolling in the transparency program, which very quickly, if the audience is not familiar with, obviously it's Amazon's unofficial form of brand gating without actually giving you brand gating. Yeah. You just have a transparency label on all of your products, and only those products with a transparency label are able to be listed for sale on Amazon.
Makes sense. Cool. So do you want to just wrap this for us? So Amazon sellers out there, what they need to do, in terms of these studio, like you said, you can knock up your own videos. There's a lot of opportunity now where people are using animation, and it's not very difficult to pull this together. But what kind of direction would you give to people if they want to shoot on a budget and do a test? They want to put $5,000 to the wind. What kind of content should they produce in, and what kind of angle should it take? I know I'm being very broad here, but what kind of guidance would you give them?
Yeah, I think authentic video in today's world is the best. And what I mean by that is one that doesn't look overly produced, because you can tell when somebody's really trying to sell you something, and you can tell when someone's really just trying to communicate the effects of something to you. Yeah. And I think distinguishing those two things in your video production capabilities, which can be done relatively cheap. Again, an iPhone camera and some locations and some editing software doesn't cost you more than a few $100 or even less than $1,000.
Yeah.
The real work is finding the right placement for that content. And I think today's world, Facebook obviously a great platform to do that, but I would encourage a lot of people, as I said earlier, 1, test TV in a small form, and podcasts. I know you don't do any advertising, so it's just one of my favorite things about your podcast, but we are seeing a lot of clients utilize podcast advertising as a means of successful reach too.
There are these kind of podcast company pop up because they reach out to me all the time, and they want me to take their guests. They've got something to peddle on the show, but it can be a good form of advertising if you can find lots of podcasts and get to advertise at the beginning of them and spread it. Then that can work out quite well. But it depends on the niche, of course.
Yeah, and just some of your earlier podcasts this year, a new form of direct response advertising, ManyChat, chatbots. I mean, that's a form of direct response. So it's evolving in today's Amazon and online selling world.
Yeah.
I think everybody should look at the different tools and resources available. But, for this podcast specifically, I would encourage a lot of people to look back to TV and their ability to do it relatively at scale.
Sounds good. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Yeah, just reiterating that podcast, radio, TV, not dead. Still works very well, and would encourage your listeners to take another look at it.
Cool. And how can people reach you?
They can reach me at Darren, Darren, at vendocommerce.com.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Darren. Guys, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.